Welcome to TGIF.
Here we are starting a brand new book, the Book of Proverbs. And it makes me think about all the things that I've probably at some point in my life thought looked super inviting, like fame and fortune. I mean, think about it. As young children, we're always looking at how could we be famous or how could I make the most money? And as we get older, we learn there's more important things like...
Takes us to the word of the day, which is wisdom.
Yes, wisdom of the world. Wait, no.
Yeah.
And you know, I think about that all the time, and I think I'm a decently smart individual, but the whole concept of wisdom and how deep wisdom is to the kind of wisdom we should always seek, I think that's where we miss the point sometimes.
So we are kicking in with Proverbs, and we are looking at Proverbs chapter 3, verse 5. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Do not depend on your own understanding. I think I've heard that one a few times.
And that's a very good, wise piece of scripture
This
from
is
a book
actually,
of wisdom.
Yeah, this is one of the most popular ones in really all the Bible. It's one that, it's interesting because the book of Proverbs is still a researched or sought out after book, even in today's world. People are still looking for, that understanding wisdom. And so this book is written after the exile. So think about the exile. Everything is tore up. It's a mess, right? And it's interesting because as you start to listen to the language in here, it seems like there's this reference to the female, a she. And so you wonder. And so it is after the exile when the temple would have been a mess, when really the male-dominated institutions of the world are all a mess. And so there seems to be this new enhanced appreciation for women and women as teachers in the home. Because think about it, if your whole family is disrupted and you can't get off to any of the institutions or the places of learning, it happens in the home. And these are some of the best proverbs that you could teach in your own home. These are things you can do at home that really help you. Chapters 1 through 9 it's this introduction to this book of wisdom, and it has an incredible poetry and style to it. It just flows.
It's easy listening to if you have book on tape. If you have the audio, it is really easy to listen to. I think because of the style and the poetry.
Yeah, and I think the popularity of it also comes because I think we're searching for something that's time tested, that's been proven over generations and time regarding wisdom. And so we all want that. We all want to have that resource that we can turn to. And I think that that's what this book really begins to lay out for us. Designed in short instructions, like you said, it's easy reading and short instructions. We don't have those stories like we had in the Old Testament, right? It's not these stories of characters and people, but yet there's these little short pieces of poetry that really connect. And I think they're pretty easy to remember too. You can kind of draw back on them when you're in trouble and you're seeking for wisdom. So,
and I think when you're reading them, if you went through the books prior, you really can pick up on where some of this is coming from. Like you said, it was after exile, where you could pick up on some of the things being laid out here in Proverbs that you could probably connect it back to some stories. I know you can even still do it today. You might read it, you thinking about that, wicked person, or that person who's choosing the wisdom of the world. I mean, it really just makes you stop and think. And it's so easy flowing. I think what we tend to do is not take it as truly instruction from God. Because when we think of wisdom, we got it all figured out.
And really, Proverbs keys in on two real important points right at the beginning to set us up. It keys on that you pay attention to the previous generations. You do. There's a lot to be gleaned in wisdom from the previous generations, and a lot of times from their mistakes, right?
That's why they connect so well.
Exactly. I think that's the one big thing. Do we listen to past generations, the good, the bad, the ugly, everything that happened? Do we pay attention to them to learn from them? But there's pieces of wisdom that come out of that too. Even in the failures, there's wisdom that can come out. And the second point being having this humility, this true humility. Do we speak harshly and arrogantly when we're talking to people? I think it really tells what kind of a person you are, if you're just always arrogant, if you're just harsh with your words. So those are the two things that Proverbs is really trying to help us focus on. And so I think when we get to this, we're trying to understand, how do we tell a person's attitude? Their overall attitude. Are they a follower of God? Can we tell by just looking at them and watching them? Well, we can, because it comes up in two places: their posture and the wisdom they embrace. And John Wesley had an interesting take on this, because he said, the wisdom of the world, it's out there, right? How to make money, put in 80 hours a week and never see your family and, don't have a life. That's the wisdom of the world. But Wesley says that's called cunning wisdom. The cunningness of the world is the wisdom we've got to be very careful about and ask ourselves, are we truly living into the God's wisdom, which is revealed how? Wesley calls it this way: faith that worketh by love.
Worketh by love. And when you think about a person's posture, our posture, attitude, what does it tell the others around you? And I think another part we can add to that is the pattern of their life. The pattern that you do day in and day out should have a reflection of wisdom you've gleaned from God. I mean, godly wisdom is the wisdom we should be seeking. Yes, we learn from mistakes in previous generations, and that's all good, but we need to make sure that we're always seeking godly wisdom, and the pattern of our life should definitely reflect that.
I think that when we look at our patterns of life, there are going to be the ebbs and flows and the brokenness and everything we learn from, but that pattern should show the character of God. It really should reflect the character of God. And what we've talked about that in so many of these books, that's what I think the Bible is getting at for us, is that what's your character? When people look at you, or like we talked about, when you're gone, what will they say about you? Will they reference that godly character, all those things that they saw in you? I think that's important. It's like, even like we've talked about, you may not be the most important person that ever comes across the world. You may not be that famous, whatever, but did you live this godly character that you were part of God's plan?
And your purpose was designed that we reflect God's love and God's wisdom to the rest of the world. So the question we leave you with is, does your source of wisdom come from God? Yes, I listen to God every day, but then I go do things the way I want to do. Exactly. I mean, it's a hard rub. It really is. So as you join us, continue joining us in Proverbs to catch up or get ahead for next week. You can read chapters 10 through 23, and we'll see you next time on TGIF. Bye.
Bye.